For the first time this season, the New York Mets truly have their backs up against the wall. All that's left to do now is try to win and get your way out of it.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. It's the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find some of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the editor-in-chief. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your energy game a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Go to www.5hourenergy.com or to Amazon today. Last year, the New York Mets played their best baseball with their back against the wall, a position they put themselves in as they got off to a brutal start. And as we all remember, they were 11 games under 500 at the end of May and going into June, and then they flipped the switch, and they were the best team in baseball from that point on. They rode the momentum all the way to Game 6 of the NLCS. This year, it's been the opposite. They picked up from where they left off at the end of last season, had a great start to the regular season. We're sitting in a very comfortable spot in the middle of June when they were the best team in baseball by record and looked like a shoo-in to make the playoffs and the clear favorite to win the National League East. And it has been a 3-month odyssey of suck. I mean, it has just been brutal. This is a team that has been sitting in a playoff spot since April 5th. And now today, going into their final road trip of the season, there's 6 games left for the first time since all the way back at the beginning of April. This Mets team is not in a playoff spot. They are tied with the Reds, and the Reds had the tiebreaker. And this is because they had a 4-5 homestand where 4 of those losses were winnable games. There's only one loss in there to the Padres that was a hard-fought loss that I don't think you look back and say, man, the Mets should have had that game. There was 2 games against the Rangers where they just could not score. Got good pitching, but they just could not score anything. 2 games against the Nationals that were very similar. One on Saturday that they had won and they just could not get that run in. And then I already talked about the Sunday game on yesterday's show where the Mets offense was inept against 2 really bad pitchers in Jake Irvin and Mitchell Parker as the Nationals played that series like it was their World Series. And the Mets lose to the Nats and now find themselves in this spot. They've been, since the trade deadline, 18-29. Talk about 11 games under 500. So what happens now? Do they continue to flame out, or do they actually fight back now that their back is up against the wall? Because you look at the Reds, who Fangraphs will tell you are not the favorite. Fangraphs, their playoff probability odds still have the Mets as the favorite. I think that's only because it is strictly odds built from a computer model, and they're looking at the Reds playing the Brewers at the end of the season in Milwaukee and thinking, oh, those are 3 losses for the Reds. But that's not the case, because the Brewers at that point might not have anything to play for, not even home field. They could have the best record in baseball locked up. And before that series, the Reds are going to play the Pirates at home, riding high after sweeping the Cubs in a 4-game set. Now, you never know what can happen. Baseball is random. The Pirates might sweep the Reds, and we're having a completely different discussion on Friday. It might be, oh, the Mets actually took every game against the Cubs, and, well, actually, at that point, that they'd be in. The Mets beat the Cubs, and the Reds somehow got swept. The Diamondbacks took one of their 3 games against the Dodgers. Now the Mets are back in the driver's seat, having to go to Miami and win a game or 2. You really don't know how things might change. But right now, based on how everything has been trending, the Reds are sitting pretty. And sometimes that could change things. The Giants were sitting pretty when they got themselves right there with the Mets a half game back, and then they were even with the Mets when the Mets lost. This was after they walked off the Dodgers with a grand slam off the bat of defensive first catcher Patrick Bailey, and then the Mets lose the next day. Giants are even with the Mets, and then the Giants went on a tailspin. So now that the Reds are sitting in the power position in this race, maybe they get a little bit antsy. Maybe they end up falling back. It's not like we're talking about a great baseball team. There's not a great baseball team in this race. These are all teams that are mediocre to slightly above average. But the Mets have kept the door open so long that now mathematically the Marlins are saying, well, if the Reds have a disaster of a week, if the Diamondbacks have a disaster of the week, if we go into Philly and sweep the Phillies, which is extremely unlikely, but you never know. It's baseball. The Marlins are riding a winning streak. All of a sudden, they can control their own fate against the Mets. They're in it still. Unlikely, they're 4 games under 500, but the Mets are only 4 games over 500, as are the Reds. So that is what this race has become. It's just who can win the war of attrition. And the Mets had the biggest lead to do it, and they've blown it. And while you might look at that Pirates series and say, oh, Paul Skeens is going out there. Well, you know what? He's going to be going up against Hunter Green, which is going to be the best pitching matchup of the week. I don't even have to look across the slate unless Skubal and Crochet are going head-to-head this week. I don't think there's a better matchup than Green versus Skeens. But you like Hunter Green even in that matchup at home because he's been unbelievable. So now the Mets, it's all simplified. You don't look at the Reds and their schedule. You don't look at the Diamondbacks and their schedule. You don't look at the Giants, certainly, and their schedule. No, it all boils down to this. Can you win tonight? Can you win tomorrow night? Each day, it's can you win the game in front of you? And then the math is going to math, and you'll figure out how you can get in from there. But if the Mets win every single game this week, they're probably in the playoffs because the Reds are going to stumble into a loss at some point. And if they don't, well, you know what? Good for the Reds. They deserve to be in the playoffs. Because the Mets right now certainly don't. But they can change that. Shamanize that if anyone can do it, it's us. Last year, that was true. This year, not so much. And even last year, that Mets team, they had a similar situation on their hands going to the final week of the season. It was a 3-team race. The Mets, the Diamondbacks, those 2 names are familiar, and the Braves. And the Mets had to go into Atlanta to start off that week. They played a game, they lost, and then the series got washed out. So then they had to go to Milwaukee. They lost the first 2 games of that series. They finally won the final game of that series, which set them up where they only needed 1 game in a doubleheader after the season had ended for everybody else. And they beat the Braves. The next day, they're in the wild card round, and the rest is history. Pete Alonso's big home run. They advance, they beat the Phillies, and then nearly make it to the World Series. It all starts tonight for the New York Mets against the Cubs. Can they start winning and ride this momentum to the point that they actually end up playing another game at Citi Field this year? Or is this one of the 6 remaining games of this season, and it all is going to conclude with an epic collapse? We're going to find out. So what I want to talk about next is, first and foremost, as we preview this series against the Cubs, what is the Mets' best starting 9? Not matchup based, nothing else. Just what's their best starting 9, and should they just stick to that group throughout the rest of the season? I'm going to talk about it all in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by Zippix. Need a boost to power through the day without reaching for another cup of coffee or an energy drink? That is where Zippix caffeine toothpicks come in. Instead of the crash you get from sugary drinks, Zippix gives you a clean, convenient burst of caffeine anytime, anywhere. And if you're looking for that nicotine satisfaction, they've got Zippix nicotine toothpicks as well. I've used the caffeine toothpicks before a big meeting. I was on the road this weekend, so I popped the toothpick in when I was feeling a little bit drowsy on my drive, and it gave me the extra edge without any jitters. They're pocket-sized and discreet, so you can take them anywhere. And the flavors are legit. I really do like this one, the peppermint watermelon ice. They also got spearmint, so it's not just energy. It actually tastes good. If you're ready to try them, go to zippixtoothpicks.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON for 10% off your first order. That's ZipXToothpicks.com. Promo code locked on. ZipX Toothpicks, energy and focus anytime you need it. Today's episode is also brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. And my favorite flavor is the blue raspberry, but there's also you have the apple bash, peach mango, cherry, berry. There's so many different flavors to choose from. And the best part too, it kicks in fast and it's that sugar-free, so you don't have to worry about crashing later. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give you a caffeine flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store or online at 5hourenergy.com or also on Amazon today. If you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get to our next goal of 15,000 subscribers. I'd love to get there by the end of the season, but we are running out of time. Really do appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. All right, before we get into the best 9 the Mets can roll with in their starting lineup, we got to talk about a guy coming off the IL, and that is Tyrone Taylor. He played 2 games on his rehab assignment, one on Friday, where he started in center field, played 7 innings, and then again on Sunday after a day off in between, where he actually played the full game. Got a day off on Monday, so it stands to reason he could be good to go to start a full game on Tuesday. And as we'll get to the starting lineups in a minute, I think they should be starting Tyrone Taylor because Cedric Mullins and Jose Siri have just been brutal. Both of them in different ways, but they've just not gotten the job done. And to me, when it comes to accommodating Tyrone Taylor on the roster, those are the guys I'd look to. Now, when it comes to optionable players, guys that can still be sent down, you have Brett Baty, Acuna, Mauricio. Obviously, Baty's not going anywhere. And I don't think Ronnie Mauricio is either. I've talked about this on the show before, but the Mets are in a situation with Ronnie Mauricio where if they send him down to the minor leagues, they will lose his final option. How options work, because it's very confusing. It's an option year. That's the way you should look at it. It's not just an option. Anytime you send someone down, you're using an option. The whole thing is an option year. So when a guy's on the 40-man roster and he doesn't make the team out of camp, you are triggering that option year when you first assign him down to your AAA affiliate. But they had to spend 20 days with the AAA affiliate or just in the minor leagues for the option to be used. And then, of course, you can send people up and down 5 times in a given season. So when it comes to Mauricio, he started the year on the MLB injured list. He started rehab games, and once he finished his rehab assignment, he was then optioned or assigned to the Syracuse Mets, and that began his option year. But he did not spend 20 days in the minor leagues. Before that, Mark Vientos, I believe, got hurt, and so Mauricio came up. The Mets had a decision after the trade deadline. Do they send down Mauricio or Acuna? And we talked about it at the time. Both of them are sitting at 17 days in the minor leagues on that season. So whoever they sent down, they were going to spend their final option. They did that with Acuna. They did not do that yet with Mauricio. So it stands to reason, unless there's a loophole because the minor league season has ended, Ronnie Mauricio, he is going to stay. And honestly, I like his left-handed bat more than Siri or Mullins anyway. Acuna brings a lot of value defensively and with his speed. That's why I'd still keep Acuna. But as far as maybe the easiest sell, I guess it'd be optioning Acuna in the sense that you're not cutting bait on your trade deadline acquisition of Cedric Mullins, which is not going to look great. I think they should do it in some respects because Mullins has earned it. 40 games of the Mets, a 578 OPS. At the same time, Jose Siri has been brutal. I don't think Jose Siri can give you a quality MLB at bat. While I don't like Cedric Mullins starting anymore, certainly, he can still give you a better at bat than Jose Siri. Defensively, not as much, but even Jose Siri had a bad game defensively in his start over the weekend. So I'd cut bait with Jose Siri. Jose Siri has 2 more years after this season, but you know what? You still have Tyrone Taylor on the roster next year. You have Jet Williams and Carson Bench, who both should be MLB ready. Heck, even Ryan Clifford could be MLB ready next season. So you have a crowded 40-man roster. Clear a spot now. Just dump Jose Siri. That's the way I would go. I don't know which way the Mets are going to go. I really don't. But I think it's going to be one of Acuna, Siri, or Mullins. Now let's talk about the starting lineup. What is the best nine the New York Mets have? Lindor is obviously going to bat leadoff, start at shortstop. You got Juan Soto batting second in right field. Pete Alonso maybe batting third, maybe batting fourth at first base. You could go with Nimmo third, Alonso fourth. Then you go with McNeil fifth, Vientos, go from there. Personally, I think I'd maybe just go Lindor, Soto, Alonso just because I want those guys to get as many at-bats as possible. And then to me, dealer's choice between Nimmo or McNeil or Vientos, whatever it is. My guess would be Nimmo, Vientos, McNeil. But the bottom line for me is Mark Vientos should be DHing this week, but in the starting lineup every single game because he has the power potential that can still break games open. I know he hasn't been swinging the bat great lately, but I would still roll with him. I would roll with Jeff McNeil at second base, Francisco Alvarez behind the dish, Brett Beatty starting these games at third base, so you have a good defender at the hot corner who's also been swinging a good bat this month. And then Tyrone Taylor, I'd be playing every day in center field if his body can hold up to do that. I don't know if he is healthy enough to play the final 6 games of the season, but if he is, I roll with Tyrone Taylor because he gives you a good defender and he's not a complete nothing offensively like Jose Siri is. So I just go with my best center fielder and just live to fight another day. Now, if you're not going to start Tyrone Taylor, to me, then you put Vientos at third, you put McNeil in center field, Beatty at second, and you DH Marte. The 10 guys who should start games this week are the 9 that I mentioned and Starling Marte. I don't want to see Cedric Mullins getting starts. I don't want to see Jose Siri getting starts. Luis Angel Acuna, Ronnie Mauricio, none of them. The only other guy, of course, is Luis Torrens. The Mets have been better this year when Torrens is behind the dish at times, but I'd still want Alvarez to bat in the lineup. And that's it. That is how I would roll through these final 6 games of the season. I'm not worrying about matchups. I'm not worrying about the fact that there's 2 lefties on the mound this series. Oh, we got to get Beatty out of the game because there's some lefties on the mound. No, go with your best lineup. Go with the guys that are giving you the best chance to win on both sides. And if you could put together a defense that has Tyrone Taylor in center field and you have Beatty at third with Vientos at DH so you don't have a black hole anywhere defensively, that's your best defensive alignment with Taylor in center, Beatty at third, McNeil at second, and obviously everything else is pretty much status quo. You're going to always have Nimmo on left, Soto on right, and then Lindor and Alonso rounding out your infield. That's what I would do, though, because I can't stomach much more out of Jose Siri, and certainly not Cedric Mullins either. But we'll see what the Mets choose to do. What I want to talk about in the final segment is how the Mets are going to play their pitching in this final week and who are the Mets going to face in this series. So we're going to go through all of that to close out the show here in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by Nutrafol. You've probably seen a million ads for hair growth products and thought, sure, like that actually works. There are so many products out there, it's hard to know which ones are actually going to do anything. That's why you should give Nutrafol a closer look. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand trusted by over 1.5 million people. It's not just hype. This is a supplement clinically tested that targets the root causes of thinning and shedding with a proactive approach. Whether you're at work, out with friends, or even just getting ready in the morning, Nutrafol gives you more confidence in your daily routine. And you can feel good about it knowing that Nutrafol is NSF certified and backed by peer-reviewed studies. See thicker, stronger hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering Locked On MLB listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Today's episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you, where you can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts on Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions that didn't even realize I had and was not using them. I also started to see my spending and realized maybe we're spending a little bit too much money on takeout, and I was able to clean that up. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use Locked On MLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code Locked On MLB. If you're an everydayer that always tunes into the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks on the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime, take part in our Locked On Mets signed photo giveaways, and get a live graphic sent to your phone each day so you know who's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Now let's talk about the pitching matchups in this series. For the Cubs, they're going to roll with Cade Horton in game one, who is the Rookie of the Year favorite right now. Horton has a 2.66 ERA across 115 innings pitched. Some might say, wait a minute, hasn't Nolan McLean been pretty good? He has been, but look at the last 7 starts for Cade Horton. He has a 1.51 ERA and he's 5-1. Now, Nolan McLean has been great for the New York Mets, but the sample size just is not there compared to Cade Horton, who has been an integral part of the Cubs for a long time. You can make an argument the Mets should have gone to Nolan McLean earlier. He's got a 1.27 ERA to start off his big league career across 7 starts. But again, Cade Horton is not far off of that over his last 7, and he's been in the rotation for months now. So that's where the Cubs are going to go for game one. The Mets are going to counter with David Peterson. Peterson has not had a good start in a little bit, but he has been the Mets' best starting pitcher this season. So hopefully he can figure it out in this game. The Mets are really going to rely on Peterson this week. If they are going to need to win a game 162, which is very likely, David Peterson gets the ball twice this week. So the Mets are going to live and die with the guy that got them into playoff position. Also a guy that's helped get them out of playoff position. So we'll see. We'll see how Peterson does, but big game for him tonight to try to flip the narrative of his season once again. Second game of the series, the Cubs are going to go with Matthew Boyd, who has a 3.20 ERA in the season. He was an all-star, but he's actually been knocked around over his last 7 starts, a 5.82 ERA. So maybe that continues against the Mets. They will likely counter with Jonah Tong. Really, the 2 options are Jonah Tong on 5 days rest or Brandon Sproat on 4 days rest. But I imagine they give Tong a start here. And then on Wednesday, it would again be a decision. You can go with Brandon Sproat on 5 days rest or Nolan McLean on 4 days rest. If you start McLean on 4 days rest, you then open him up to pitch game 1 of a wild card round on 4 days rest or game 2 of a wild card round on 5 days rest. If you go Sproat first and then McLean against the Marlins, he will only be available in a potential wild card round in game 2 on 4 days rest. Something he hasn't done that much this year anyway. So I would personally get him into this series against the Cubs, the better of the 2 teams you're going to face this week, and set him up for a potential playoff start. Yes, there's no guarantee the Mets get there, but I still think that's the best way to go about this series is Tong, then go McLean, and you can have Brandon Sproat pitch on Friday against the Marlins. That's how I would probably line it up. Now, when it comes to the final game of the series, who would be going up against Nolan McLean or Brandon Sproat, it's going to be Shota Imanaga. Imanaga has been good this year, a 3.37 ERA. So you're facing 3 quality starters for the Cubs, and you're countering with David Peterson, who's been rough lately, and then 2 rookies. You just got to pick your 2 rookies because there's no other options. You're not going to see Clay Holmes. You're not going to see Sean Manaea, and it certainly does not seem like you're going to see Kodai Senga. Kodai Senga will face minor league hitters in Florida and then figure it out. So he's in Port St. Lucie, and we'll see what Senga looks like there and if the Mets even opt to pitch him again at all this season. What would that leave you with in the Marlins series, though? If you end up going with Peterson, Tong, McLean, you're going to have Brandon Sproat on Friday. Again, it's either going to be McLean on Thursday, Sproat on Friday, or the inverse of that. You would have Clay Holmes and Sean Manaea ready to go for another piggyback, or you split them up. Have one go one game, one go another game. A lot depends on what happens, of course, because like I said at the beginning of the show, you really don't know what's going to happen here. There's every chance that the winning stops for the Reds and the Diamondbacks. The Mets have a great series in Chicago, and things look completely different when you're heading to Miami. Would I count on that? Absolutely not. But right now, the Mets are not in the business of looking beyond anything but tonight. What gives you the best chance to win tonight? That's David Peterson, because he's the one guy that can go, and unless you're going to go Tong on 4 days rest. And you got to go with your veteran at this point to pitch well in a big game. From there, again, probably best bet is Tong, and then it's one of McLean or Sproat. And then you see what's left when you get to Miami. You see what is still in the tank. But that's where this team's at here. 6 games left to define their season. Can they get on a winning streak tonight, beat the Cubs, and we'll see what the math looks like from there tomorrow. We'll see. I'll be covering the whole thing, of course, on this show. Really appreciate all of you for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on the audio side, follow, rate, review wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider and be part of our texting service, you can go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets or find a link in our episode description. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listener, first watch every day. Now, for your second watch, check out Locked On MLB Game Night, the show that takes you through all the action in Major League Baseball with insight from our local experts and league-wide experts that'll take you through the game. You can find Locked On MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel, as well as the Locked On MLB podcast feed.